everyone, and welcome back to the Sporting Global podcast. And today we're here with Denis Green. Denis, thank you so much for taking the time. It's a pleasure having you part of our podcast.
Cheers, Ollie. Very, very happy to be here and talk to you, and hopefully I can deliver some interesting insights on sports industry in China.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, you're touching right upon it. We're going to talk about, how to create value for a digital audience in China. And more than ever, the digital audience is a key factor, considering the pandemic, everything, going on. So I think we have a lot of interesting elements to discuss around this. But before we do that, Denis, I think it would be great, if you could share a little bit about your background and experience, so our viewers, listeners can get a better sense of like who you are, what you're doing, and then we dive more into, the main topic of the day.
Absolutely. So to cut a long story short, I studied I'm from Manchester, from England, from the red side of Manchester, big Man United fan. And I studied in Sheffield. I did my degree in media and journalism. And then I did my master's degree in sports journalism.
Nice.
And this led to a summer gig in India, in Delhi, at the Commonwealth Games, working as a flash quote reporter at various events at the Commonwealth Games. Went back to the UK. I was 21. I was single. I was bored. What to do? So I decided I wanted to travel, to go abroad, have an adventure. Decided that China would be a challenge, be an interesting country to visit, to work in, to live in. But I didn't have any real intention of how long I would stay in China. It was more of let's go and see what happens. So I first started out in China almost 10 years ago now.
Nice.
And I was doing a bit of teaching of English. I was doing some studying of Chinese. I was doing some freelance writing. And this lasted for about 2 to 3 years.
Nice.
And then I got to that point of, do I stay or do I go? And just before I was sort of about to come back to the UK, I got a job in Beijing, working as a journalist. For a sort of government-owned media enterprise, writing about all things China. Could have been sport, tech, entertainment, things like that. Did that for a couple of years. Being a journalist in China, as I'm sure you're aware, is tough. There's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of things that you can't really write about or talk about. And then I moved to a company called Le Sports, which was part of a mother company that was Le TV. And this company now no longer exists. But at its time, it was trying to take on the world. It had, activities going on in sports, in TVs, in mobile, in electric vehicles. It basically wanted to be the Apple, Amazon, Netflix, all rolled into one. It was a very grand vision.
That's huge.
They raised a lot of money. They spent a lot of money, and they ended up collapsing. It was a great 3 years. I was basically working at a digital sports broadcaster, and they had the rights to the Premier League, all the US sports, you name it. They had the rights in China, and they had it on their OTT platform, which was the first time any company had done OTT in China. So fun few years there, and then as soon as that company started to sort of fall and evaporate, I joined the guys at MailMan, which is where I am now, and I've been here 3 years. 3 years tomorrow, actually, will be my 3-year anniversary. So I head up the PR and communications department at MailMan. And it's been great working here. We're based in Shanghai. It's the global HQ of the company. And we're a sports digital marketing agency. In a nutshell, that's been my 10 years in China. It's gone quickly, very quickly.
I can imagine.
But China's an incredible place. Never did I think I'd do a decade here.
But
If
here you are.
But here I am. And if you put your mind to it, I think learning the language is very,
yeah.
you know, I'm sort of conversational. That opens a lot of doors.
Right. For sure.
It's not the easiest place to live. You know, I've lived in more rural places in China over my 10 years, but Shanghai is very, very convenient for a foreigner, for a Westerner. And yeah, I enjoy living here. Don't think I'll be here forever, but you never know.
Yeah. No, I mean, like it's fun exploring a little bit around. And I think, as you said, is you know, what I think, you know, people should take from just this right away is like sometimes you just gotta, you know, go for it and at least try, you know, and then, you know, maybe that's a year, maybe that's 6 months, maybe that's, you know, ending up being 10 years. You don't know.
Exactly. I've known people who have been here 6 months, 6 weeks, 25 years. You know, it's not for everyone, but
and that's fine.
If you but you definitely have to give something back to China. You have to invest time in learning the language, the culture.
100%.
And once you do that, you'll realize you'll get a lot more out of China because people will respect that you have, you know, taken time to learn key things about the country and the people. So it's about a lot of respect there.
Yeah, but I mean, like wherever you go in the world, like we always talk about, like, you know, if you're gonna study somewhere or work somewhere, you know, learn the basic culture, you know, take the first steps of, like, you know, if you try to learn the language, try to, you know, understand the mechanisms of wherever that is. And like, you know, obviously I went to the US and it's a little bit easier transition, but it's still different, you know, and you still gotta, like, you know, adapt their ways of doing things. And you know, it's like you also got to respect, you know, how they do things and how they are, even if, like, okay, we do some stuff differently in Norway, which is naturally, but you know, this is just part of, like, your way of, like, okay, I'm here, you know, I gotta, you know, learn as much as I can and utilize it and not just be, you know, stuck in my ways and how we do things.
Otherwise it's a bit of a wasted opportunity, especially somewhere like China. Like, you know, it's not next door.
Yeah, probably more than the, you know, the typical European country or so forth. It's like the culture also is extremely strong, you know, in China, which I think is, you know, going to be very, very key. But let's talk a little bit about MailMan Group and sort of like what is, you obviously mentioned it's like an agency, but what kind of role do MailMan Group have in the sport industry?
So MailMan Group, which comprises of MailMan and 7 League, which I'll come to in a bit. So MailMan's a global sports digital agency and consultancy. We're headquartered in Shanghai. We have about 140 people working here in Shanghai.
Nice.
And then we have a hub in Singapore, which is our Southeast Asia hub. We have about 10, 15 people in Singapore. And then we have country managers in South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, all those countries where we can service our clients. And then we have a small office in the US, in Los Angeles.
Nice.
And we have our London office, which is 7 League. MailMan acquired 7 League probably about 2 years ago now.
Okay.
And they're Europe's leading sports digital consultancy. And it helps sort of complement, you know, what we do as an agency, bringing on their expertise as a consultancy. So MailMan originally is China's leading sports digital agency. We work with about 50 clients across China, and they are a combination of sports federations, organizations, clubs, players, and brands. And what MailMan does is it's help grow these brands and these sports properties, help grow their business, and help them at the end of the day try and make money in a very key international market for these properties. And services range typically from social media at the core, but then we do a lot of original content with our in-house studio. We do digital strategy, we do their e-commerce, we do their PR, media rights, sponsorship. It's a very sort of holistic scope of work. We listened to our clients. They wanted to, obviously they were in China working with us, then they wanted to be in Southeast Asia. They said, can you do it for us? We go, yes. So then we open up in Southeast Asia. So the real sort of goal is to become a global sports agency and consultancy where we can grow the businesses of our clients, as one company, rather than them having to have an individual agency in 15, 20 different regions.
Yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, it's a step by step, process, and it's an interesting, model. But I think as you're building now, obviously you have already offices in the US and London with the other company that you guys have acquired, but it gives you like some foot stamps and some opportunity to dive deeper into those markets and taking more and more of the shares, market share. And
sure, yeah. When I arrived 3 years ago, we only had Shanghai office. We had about 70 people. So within 3 years, we've doubled headcount here. We've opened in Singapore and US, and we've acquired a company in London. So it's been a great 3 years, it's
going the right direction.
It's going the right direction. Yeah, it's bit, and COVID-19 has obviously been a huge impact on the industry, and a huge financial impact,
for sure.
But in a roundabout way, it's accelerated digital. It's accelerated digital trends, and it's made digital even more important in the modern day. And being a digital first agency, it's we're now even more important to our clients in helping them utilize these digital platforms and give them more of a voice in a region when there's been less live sport. Fans can't be present at games, so we're in a good place at the moment.
Yeah, so let's talk about obviously the current situation, and obviously it's a very challenging time, and as you mentioned, the value of a digital audience has been extremely powerful, and it is extremely powerful, not only obviously before COVID too, but now in this situation, everyone is doing something digitally, and the importance of speaking to your audience, because they're not coming to your stadium, they're not coming physically to wherever you want to do. How can essentially brands, entities make the most out of the situation? How are you guys taking advantage of the situation to elevate and make the most out of the clients that you have, to help them essentially grow their businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit different for us because we're doing digital strategy for our clients in China and in Southeast Asia. So a lot of the fans here, they're not able to attend games in person anyway. So it's different than if, for example, you were a football fan in the UK and you can't attend games. It's how are they going to make this product digital and more interactive and entertaining? So during the period of no live games in China, it was challenging to come up with new ways to keep fans entertained when there was no live sport. But it was actually a good thing because it gets you thinking more creatively and out of the box. You can't just rely on your regular weekly routine of build up to matches, pre-match, during, post-match, and then filler content throughout the week. So for example, we work with BVB in China, Borussia Dortmund. And they were due to play Schalke just before COVID-19 basically stopped all Bundesliga games. And we had organized a live viewing party of that game. And then 24 hours before kickoff, the game was cancelled. And the fans were like, we still want to do something with the club, even though there's no game. So we ended up turning it into a virtual fan party online.
That's cool.
Where we integrated all the partners and the sponsors and the head office in China and various other aspects and fan leaders and entertainment aspects, and created this 2-hour online fan party that ended up getting millions of views, a really interactive way between the fans and the staff in China, and a couple of mentions from people in Germany. So, it was about thinking on your feet and thinking of new ways to create entertainment and making it as interactive as possible. And giving the fans a platform, giving them a voice. And basically creating an online community to rally together. So, that's an example of how we had to sort of, react quickly
Right. It's very quickly too.
It was very quickly, and we're glad we did it. And there was a lot of learnings from it as well.
Right.
You know, we established our studio about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
And that's given us a real sort of new way of creating quick to market, original, localized content in China for China, which is really important. Because we did game shows and quiz shows and legend shows and all these kind of things with our clients, which have been really successful. And it gives us a great platform to help them produce interesting content. Because maybe 10 years ago, you could pull content from global channels, put Chinese subtitles on, and then get away with it.
Yeah.
But China's changed so much. Fans expect more. They demand more.
And they expect something different, you know, like they expect something that speaks to them, you know, and that are tailor-made to their market, their needs, you know, which makes sense. You know, people are,
you know, they're like, sponsors are like, well, why would I invest in this, you know, organization if they're not doing things that are for the China market and not unique? What's the selling point here? And fans are like, well, why should I, you know, buy their merchandise, buy their products if they're not really caring or catering for us in China? So
not really speaking to us, you know, like in a sense.
Exactly. You've got to show them respect, you know. Chinese fans are very passionate fans.
100%.
And they want to feel loved. They want to feel like they're being talked to and respected. So you have to really you know, do as much as you can in market to do this.
Looking into the future, the beginner faces a choice that leads him to the triumph, or not. Being surrounded by like-minded professionals can be the best guarantee that you actually take that crucial career step.
Sport in Global is a digital network for sports jobs. It gives you the chance to be involved in the sports industry no matter who you are, regardless of gender, nationality, and experience.
Our AI system matches up talent with human resources. Candidates who align with the company's values and needs immediately get shortlisted. It saves time for HR and increases the opportunities available to applicants.
The platform identifies tailor-made recommendations based on user needs, so you're always aware of the possibilities out there right now.
Sport in Global is a place where students gain key tips about jobs and build the valuable connections that are essential for people at the beginning of their career path.
The path from candidate to champion starts with a single step in the right direction. Sign up to Sport in Global.
Sport in Global, the best way to enter the sports industry.
Yeah, and I think you touched upon something, you know, very important in terms of creativity, right? And I think, you know, I had some recent talks, and we talked obviously about this situation being, you know, where crisis leads to innovation. You know, that's sort of like the typical, you know, staple. But at the same time, you have to do it. You know, like it's like adapt or die, right? Sort of in a sense where, you know, now it's the time to actually, you know, look at things differently. And yes, you will have a situation where, you know, okay, you maybe have only, you know, 24 hours and you have to make something happen, which is, you know, fantastic. And then you also realize, okay, well, this is a different and new format that we can build upon and learn from it. And as you know, of course, like I would assume, even if, you know, you guys got a lot of great results, you know, from that live event, you probably learned, you know, tons of things that you're like, oh, this is how we, you know, improve this so much, you know, for the next one, because now we only had like, you know, limited time. We just had to make something work and we were being creative, but now we can like fine tune it and we can maybe, you know, make it into like, you know, a proper, how can I say, product or service, you know, that you can offer your clients.
100%. No, definitely. And, you know, we did 3, 4, 5 more of those fan parties for BBB, and we've done 10, 15 others for other clients as well. And, you know, you're right. You learn every time you do one, you learn from the mistakes, you create new ways to make it entertaining, because the same fans will be coming back and they'll demand something different.
That's true. That's true. And I was thinking, like, if we look a little bit in terms of, you know, like working with like, obviously, you have, your some offices in Europe, like with the London office, and what kind of elements like the European brands or like BBB, right? Which is one of your clients, like what do they have to think about when approaching the Asian market? I know you talked a little bit about like, obviously respecting their culture, showing like, that you care, but like what separates it? It's like what can they do, and like what is some things that they have to think about, going into that Chinese market?
Yeah, it's a good question. Whenever we're approached by potential clients, they're generally at different stages of their China journey.
Right.
They could be on very sort of entry level where they've not even been to China before. They could have already been here 5 years and they're looking for, a unique idea or a campaign.
Yeah.
But in general, we always say to clients, you've got to be in China for the long term.
Right.
There is no short fix in China of coming here, making a few $1 million and then leaving. Right. It just doesn't happen. No one's ever done it. Probably the best and most successful case study is the NBA.
Yeah.
Because they first came to China in, I think it was the late 70s. The late David Stern came out here knocking on the doors of CCTV with videotapes of NBA replays and
nice.
Trying to get it in front of as many people as possible.
Right.
And, and it's no secret that they are now the most successful international sports property in China with the biggest following, making the most money, even though they had some crises late last year with the Daryl Morey issue. They're still way head and shoulders above the rest because they've been in here for the long term. They found the right partners. They've done their research. They've made local partnerships, government connections, and established a very sustainable and profitable business in China.
Right.
So we always say, if you're going to come to China, have patience.
Yeah.
Be in it for the long term. Do your research. Pick your partners carefully. Take a very localized approach. Hire local people on the ground to be your eyes and ears.
Right.
And again, have more patience. Because it does take time, no matter who you are. You could be the NBA or you could be a small team. Success won't happen overnight, and you can't really treat China as one country anymore. It's such a big country of 1.4 billion people that you almost have to treat China like a continent, which has different provinces where people speak different, local languages, different cuisines, different tastes, different mindsets. So we always, when you're coming here,
your starting point will be important, right? Like what kind of, like, where do you put your base? Like, where do you essentially where's your entry point in China too? I think will be important, right? And probably, some guidance there in collaboration with you guys of like mapping out where does it make sense, in terms of like, is this more of a, basketball region? Is this more of a, football, soccer region? Like, these kind of factors will be important.
Yeah, and you've got to come in with your own unique sort of way of doing things. You don't just want to be, launching a social, doing what all the other accounts are doing.
100%.
You're not going to stand out. Chinese fans, that they want to be proud of their teams and they want to show off and highlight why their club is unique and different. So coming in with a very, unique and specific approach to China, knowing exactly what you want to do, researching and knowing who your target audience is, who are your communities, where are they, who are the key people, who do you need to speak to. All this needs to be really well thought out. You can't just come and land in China and go, okay, let's launch a social channel.
Right. 100%.
There's a lot of planning, German clubs probably do this more than any others, is, having a base here, having an office here, having a presence is so important because it gives you that day-to-day interaction with your fans, with your partners, with the local communities and the government, rather than trying to do it from an office 9,000 miles away.
Yeah, it's not easy, and as you say, like, you need like the local people, to be part of this and knows the ins and outs, and like the secret sauce, of like understanding, the mechanisms and how to make the most out of, the different markets. Who do you speak with?
And how to do business here. Doing business in China is totally different than anywhere else.
Right.
A contract doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's like,
there's a lot to learn,
there's so much, and China changes so quickly. The speed of, it's a mobile first market, but things change so quickly. Douyin didn't exist a few years ago, and now it just announced that it hit 600 million daily active users. It's phenomenal how quick these things can catch on and grow. China does things at speed. It really does.
Well, I mean, like, it's kind of in their blood or in the culture, I would say. Like, it goes super fast.
Yeah, and China had its sort of industrial revolution a lot later than international countries did. So, when they started building their infrastructure and technologies and railway stations and airports, they had all the latest and newest products. Whereas, for example, the UK, they had its industrial revolution much earlier, and they're still trying to get to terms with the new norm of technology and infrastructure.
Right. So just wrapping up a little bit on MailMan Group, and like, how do you guys, obviously you were talking a little bit like what kind of tasks you guys are doing, but what are some of like the key things to think about for you guys when you're helping organizations grow their business in China? Like, what is your focus? Like, what is your value proposition? How do you help them? What is your main focus when you're, getting approached by clients, or what potential clients you guys are reaching out to?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's no secret. Everybody wants to come to China to make money.
Yeah.
Else what else would they come here?
Right.
But that has to be a bit of an afterthought. When we're sort of talking to clients and we're giving them advice on coming to China and growing the business, it's really about establishing their reputation and growing a core fan base within the region. First and foremost, giving yourself a product that when you go to market to potential partners or sponsors or looking to get branded content or sponsors for your digital content, you have a product that is powerful and unique and makes these brands want to partner with. And I think also you need to invest in the communities and invest in the grassroots. Everybody knows that Xi Jinping has a grand plan for Chinese football to host a World Cup and eventually win a World Cup, which will be a long time away yet. But the ambition is there, and it's very important that sports organizations align with the government's goals. Whatever the government's mandate is, if you can stick to that and follow that, but in your own way, then you're on the right track.
Nice.
But like I said in your previous question, it does take time, and you have to invest in the country and invest in your brand in the market before you start launching your e-commerce channels, or you start putting your presentation in front of partners to get them to put money behind your brand here and help it grow.
It's about taking that first step essentially and showcasing that we're in there for the long run, and we're interested in like not only of course like here to like gain revenue and earn money, but we're actually here to contribute and give something back.
Yeah, and it's about having a realistic vision of China. Everybody sees the 1.4 billion people number, and they go, oh, if we can just have 1% of that, it's still 140 million people. If the sports industry in China is incredibly small when you compare it to the entertainment industry or the lifestyle and fashion industries. Even the esports industry is burgeoning now. So you have to break it down. 1.4 billion people, sure, but then relatively there's probably 100 million sports fans. And then you have to break those sports fans down into different sports and then into your own team. So you know, it's not realistic to look at China and go, oh, 1.4 billion, let's try and pick a percentage of that. You have to be very realistic. And not until sort of 15 years ago was sports readily available to watch on you know, TV channels and more recently digital channels and platforms. And so the older generations grow up not really watching international sports. So you're only sort of looking at the you know, 35 years and below who have genuine interest in these sports, and now you've got this big challenger coming in called esports, which is absolutely huge in China and is only going to get bigger and bigger. So then it's like, well, how do they collaborate with esports, or how do they, you know, fight that competition? It's a hugely competitive market. There's so many new platforms launching, like, you know, Douyin a few years ago. Now you've got Bilibili and Kuaishou and all these new platforms that are really targeting the younger generations, you know, not the millennials or the Gen Zs, but the alphas and so on. So there's a real sort of battle for an attention for eyeballs in the economy here.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And I think you bring up something very important, and that is, you know, what exactly is your market size, you know? And like, of course, like, yeah, as you said, there may be 100 million fans, but then there's, you know, parts of it. And then I think also, like, you know, for European brands particularly, and maybe like US brands, you know, like taking advantage of, like, you know, the growth of esports, you know, which is obviously, you know, been starting to, you know, also, you know, have their presence in Europe and like obviously in the US before it kind of like started going to Europe too. But that's sort of like, you know, might be, you know, a way of attracting more eyeballs and creating that loyal, you know, fan engagement to your team as well, as long as you can tie it up, of course, and it makes sense and it's unique. But I think that might be a key factor, you know, moving forward.
Yeah, and something else we've seen a lot of, and what we do with our clients now, especially during the current situation where teams can't come to China for summer tours or player visits with their brands, is giving fans in China more of a voice, more of a platform. So there's a lot of core ambassadors now for our clients who are, you know, they're content creators themselves. They're the ones who are the key voices in the WeChat groups, in the communities. WeChat groups are a very powerful way now of having a direct message sent to your core fan communities in different regions. And, you know, incentivizing them, saying, you know, you produce 10 pieces of content for your own channels as an official ambassador, and we'll incentivize you with passes to our games and signed jerseys, and you know, you have the title of an official ambassador for your favorite team or league. So giving fans more of a voice is great, and fans like to watch content from other fans because they're like-minded people, and they can create content that they know will work and entertain other fans.
No, for sure. And just to start kind of like wrapping up here, and I think, you know, we've been covering a lot of different things in terms of, like, you know, obviously the value of digital audience and kind of like the status of the Chinese market, which I think like we can probably talk, you know, a long time about, like, just understanding the mechanisms, because I'm already learning like so much, and I think there's so many people here on the listening to this podcast that are like not aware of, like, you know, how the Chinese market works, you know, in depth, of course.
We're all learning. I can't call myself an expert. We learn every day. We go with the flow here because it changes so quickly. You know, things can happen within a week, and you know, things have changed. So
that's amazing. And I mean, like, that's sports for you, right? It's fresh. It's always fresh. You know, there's always something new coming up.
It's exciting. Yeah.
But what kind of like tips do you have though for students, particularly like, or young professionals looking to explore, you know, the Chinese sports market? Like, what would be like a good starting point, and like, where should you start, you know?
Subscribe to the MailMan China Sports Business Weekly.
That was like the perfect first start.
Perfect start. Yeah, a weekly wrap up of all the news in China. I can send you the link. It's just all the news in China.
We'll share it.
Yeah. There's many sort of resources out there. There's blogs. There's podcasts that you can listen to. That, you know, if you sort of follow a few key people, a few influential voices on China sports. Right. I can send you a few names. Would be good to keep up with the market. Just build up your interest in China. Right. Whether you want to come out here and work in the industry, learn the language, look at potential opportunities that can get you out here. Right. It took me 4 to 5 years before I landed in the sports industry here. Right. Albeit it wasn't my initial intention. Right. It still took a while, and it took patience, but there's huge opportunities here to come and work in the growing sports industry. Yeah. So getting on LinkedIn, making connections with people, reaching out, asking questions. I'm sure all my colleagues at MailMan are always happy to pick up the phone and speak to people who want to know and learn about China. Right. There's plenty of resources and information online as well. The MailMan website's good. just plugging in the company there.
Plugging in. Being proactive, right? I think just being, taking the step. And I think there's a couple of things you talk about too, in terms of, how important the culture and the language is, there. And if this is something that you're, who's listening out there, wants to work or study there, now's the time, maybe you have some extra hours to start learning, these sort of things.
Just get interested in China. It's a fascinating country. Absolutely. With fascinating people, and the more you read about it and learn about it, the more you want to know. It's like opening up a door into the unknown, and then you just gradually sort of get to know more and more. And it's incredible, because from the outside, China's it's like Mars. It just seems like another world.
So it's very really true. And focusing more than just eating the food,
Exactly. You've got to go head first. You've got to, there's no other way. You can't just sort of skim around the outside of Chinese or about the culture. You just got to go full on in, and you'll love it or you won't, but there's only one way to find out.
Right. No, it's a very good point. And with that, Dennis, I would just like to thank you, so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge with us today. And, I think there's a lot of people out there that, learned a lot about, at least a sneak peek of the Chinese market, trying to understand a bit, how, especially you guys are working with the, bringing the European brands into China, and kind of some of the things that you have to think about and utilizing, the digital audience. So I truly appreciate it, and thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome, mate.
So with any video we finish, we always wrap up with "Vi snakkes," which means "see you later" in Norwegian.
Vi snakkes.
There you go. That was perfect.